What happens when you have low self-esteem in relationships? First of all, you get angry, right? Because you can't figure out why they would be treating you like they are, why they're rejecting you, and perhaps you're interpreting that they are considering that you are not smart enough, you're not good enough for them to be with you or to care about you. Then the other person, they get angry because possibly they don't know why you're so upset and why you're interpreting things the way that you are, or the way you're acting the way that you are in the relationship. Then again, if you told them, then they may be angry at you because they say you're accusing them falsely, or they maybe feel like you're making it all about you. Then what happens for you? Well, then you withdraw, you back down, you don't speak up about what you're really feeling, you don't clarify what's really going on, and then you're not showing up in the relationship as genuine as how you feel. But instead, you become passive aggressive. You're only presenting the parts of you that you feel like will be acceptable to others, or what it is you feel like they expect from you. And then deep down inside, you are feeling not connected. You're feeling lonely, not seen, not valued, and possibly you even develop bitterness toward this other person, especially if it's someone who is really close to you, like a really close friend, or your husband, or sibling, or a parent. Now, there are many things that have contributed to your low self-esteem and how that plays out in relationships. But today, what we're going to look at is one factor for why you are stuck here. One factor that keeps you returning to this place of always seeing others as better than you, as being smarter than you, or as rejecting you, and doing all the things that I just described a moment ago. And without understanding this one factor, what is going to happen for you is you are, no matter how hard you try to get rid of low self-esteem, you're going to stay stuck there. Well, if you don't know me, let me introduce myself. My name is Tawnya Kordenbrock, and I'm the person behind arenewedlife.com. That is a place where I help women to learn how to rewire their brains so they can break free from fear, anger, and shame, to be able to love themselves, feel loved by others, and have a deeper relationship with God. And I hope today that you will check out the resource that I have created for you that goes along with this teaching, and I will put a link to that in the comments below. In my last training video, I talked about 5 causes of low self-esteem that are particular to women. Some of them also apply to others, but today I want to review 3 of those that are really impactful and come into play in relationships and your relationships today. So the first one is authority figures. What the words that authority figures have said to you and their actions toward you. That would mainly include your parents. Those are going to be number 1 because they were the most powerful people in your life growing up. Then also other authority figures like pastors, coaches, teachers, older siblings, and even aunts and uncles and grandparents. Then also bullies. Growing up, if you were bullied, the impact of the words of those other kids and how they treated you is going to be pretty deep, and has greatly influenced how you view yourself in relationships today. Now, those two, the authority figures and bullies, mainly show up in your childhood, but also in your adulthood. The words of your spouse, what your husband has to say about you and how he treats you, have greatly impacted your self-esteem. And especially if he has been abusive, either verbally abusive, physically, emotionally abusive, or if he has been unfaithful to you, and especially if he has been repeatedly unfaithful to you. What all of these have done is they have shaped your view of yourself, your view of others, and that includes God, and your view of just how the world works. And those beliefs that have been formed have also created neural pathways within your brain that have a whole response pattern, so that when you encounter someone possibly rejecting you today, or someone hurts you, you feel left out, then that is going to trigger that emotional response that was formed by those earlier years in your life and the hurts that you experienced. And in order to change this pattern, you have to work on recognizing it and making some shifts to it and practicing some mindfulness with that. That's something that I've talked about in my other videos, and you can check those out there. Now, there is a surprising factor in low self-esteem that you really need to know about. And the reason why you need to know this is because no matter how much you work on improving your self-esteem, this factor is always going to be in the background, and truthfully, it's going to be just deep within you. What is this one factor that you need to know about? Well, it is that you have low self-esteem. You have these beliefs about yourself. You hold on to them because they developed as a means of protecting you. And there are two main ways that negative beliefs about yourself and about how others view you and how God views you, there are two ways that those protect you. So the first one is that it protects you from hurt. Now, if you think about this, for instance, when you were a child, and let's say your mother was possibly physically abusive, where she would hit you, she would grab you by the hair. Maybe she was verbally abusive and would, just look at you as you were disgusting and tell you were disgusting. She would have condemning words toward you about how you were never going to be good enough. And perhaps she considered another child as an example of what you should be like. And so that hurt, right? Absolutely, it would hurt. And especially if you had perhaps siblings who kind of just went along with that and piled onto it their own words and their harsh treatment of you. And so because this is so painful, one of the things that can develop is identifying with, it's like aligning your beliefs with the beliefs of the person who is abusing you, the person who is hurting you. Now, what that does is it in some ways kind of, can protect you physically. Because if you are saying, already telling yourself, oh, there's something wrong with me, I'm stupid, I should shut up, I shouldn't speak up, I should just stay in the background. Now, what that staying in the background does is it keeps you from getting hurt. If you were physically abused or if you were bullied, but you stayed in the background, then that possibly served to keep you from being seen and stepping into the line of fire. Now, it also, in some ways, protected you from being hurt emotionally. And if you think about it, you know, the way that some of my online members have described this is that if you already believe the worst about yourself, then how can someone else hurt you, right? Because they're not saying anything that you haven't already heard. They're not saying anything that you haven't already said about yourself. And so it has a way of decreasing the intensity of other people's words and other people's actions. Now, a second reason why you would have aligned with the beliefs of someone who hurt you or someone who was abusing you. Okay, now this one is a little bit harder for people to grasp. Okay, and if you look at what I'm doing here, and I'm talking about this alignment, you see how this is like together. Okay? This is because when you align with the words and the beliefs of someone who has hurt you, that gives you a connection with them. A connection that if you were to rebel against that, if you were to reject that belief, then you most likely would have, you know, as a child especially, you would have been hurt or you would have been ostracized from the family. Let's say as a late teenager, maybe you're 17, 18 years old, and you have a dad who is, you know, he's angry and he has outbursts and he really says really harsh and cruel things to you. And perhaps he's been kind of physically rough with you, or he's really hard on you in the tasks that he assigns to you, the chores. And you decide, you know what, I am not putting up with this anymore. I am going to stand up to him and I'm going to tell him, I am done with this. I am done with you. Well, what is he going to do? He's not going to just change like, oh, I've hurt you, I am so sorry. But instead, he is going to become even more angry with you. He's going to become even harsher with you in his treatment toward you. And he could possibly even at that age say, you know what? You just go on. You just go on and get out of here. We don't need you. I don't need you in this family anymore. And so as a younger child, okay, let's say you're 8 years old. Well, absolutely, there is no way that you are going to be able to rise up and to say, hey, Dad, you can't treat me this way. You're not treating me as a loving father would treat someone. No, you have the beliefs that, you know, as a child, that your parents are all knowing and they are right. And so what they say is right. And if you were to have some kind of capability to be able to reason against this and to be able to pull away from it, stand up to it, you would not have survived. You could have been hurt, but also you would not have had that relationship with that parent. Yeah, it wasn't a good relationship, but it was a connection with them. So if you have any questions about that, be sure to put that in the comments, because I know that's a hard one. When I discuss this with my members, it's a hard one for them to grasp and to accept. Now, the protection part from being hurt, they usually get that. But the part of protecting you from disconnection, that they don't always get. And what was just now coming to my mind is, if you consider, like right now, okay, because these patterns that have developed in childhood are going to come with you into your adult relationships because of those neural pathways that have been formed, those response patterns that automatically kick in and play out. So they're going to show up now. And so if you think about in your marriage, if you're married or you have a significant, you have a boyfriend that you're really close to, and you think about that relationship and you feel like, he's not really treating me well, he's not respecting me, he doesn't talk to me lovingly, he puts me down, he doesn't show me the attention that I desire. But when your pattern kicks in, then you feel like, oh, I shouldn't feel the way that I feel. I should just be quiet. Or my needs are too strong and I should just push those down. I shouldn't elevate myself. I shouldn't put myself first in the relationship, like believing that if you speak up, then you're putting yourself above someone. And so you see how as you stick to that low self-esteem, that keeps you connected with him. Because if you rejected it, if you rejected all those beliefs that something is wrong with you, that you shouldn't speak up, that you shouldn't be the way you are, but instead you were like, wait a minute, why aren't you treating me with respect? What is going on here? And I demand that you, if we're going to be in a relationship, then you need to be attentive to me. You need to act like I have equal value in this relationship. You need to act like and treat me as though my opinions matter also. My desires matter also. And then what could happen? Well, he could say, heck with you. I'll go get another woman to be in relationship with. Or he might say, well, if you're going to be this way, then, he could get even harsher, or he could go have an affair or threaten to have an affair as though it's your fault because you're rising up and you're having a higher esteem for yourself. Okay, does that make more sense for you? Let me know. So what we've looked at today is how these various events in your life have shaped you, and how you view yourself, how you view others, and how you view just how life works. Now, they've developed negative views of yourself. They have developed views of others that they can't be accepting of you, and they can't respect you, or they won't treat you well unless you are in this lower place of not being worthy of being treated well. And so you can use mindfulness to be aware of this response pattern that is developed, kicking in, and mindfulness will help you to be able to bring some shifts to that. Yet, at the same time, there's going to be this one factor, this part of you that believes you cannot get rid of low self-esteem because it will be too dangerous. It will be too dangerous because of how you've aligned to the beliefs of those who have hurt you. And that if you give that up, then you risk being hurt, either with verbal, from the abuse or the mistreatment, or you risk a disconnect from that person in losing that relationship. Don't forget, before you go, that I do have a free resource to help you with this. And it is basically going to use some scripture verses to help you examine the patterns that arise within you as you meditate on these verses, and the thoughts that arise and the response patterns that are there, and kind of guide you in changing those response patterns also. As I said, I will put a link to that below, and let me know if you have found this helpful. Have a great day.